Hello and welcome to the first ever Today with Chelsea, a social network chat show. Over the next few weeks, I will bring interviews of key community figures. It gives me great pleasure in welcoming my first ever guest, the chairman of Dudley Private Hire Taxi Association, Shaz Saleem.
Hello, thank you, Chelsea.
Shaz, welcome and thank you for joining me. Now, before we begin, on behalf of the show, I want to congratulate you on overturning a 17-year rule, but we will get to know more about that later. Right, first of all, I'd like to know what made you get involved in the association.
I think you have to go way back really. I was 13 when I started working with my dad. I used to do like weekend operating, helping him out. I used to come on Saturday and Sundays and help him out. And every weekend I used to come, one driver or another used to be complaining, oh, the council done this, council done that. So as I was growing up, all that was in my head that the council are doing wrong to the drivers. I think I was about 18 and I actually asked the drivers, I go, well, why don't you do something about it? Oh, they don't listen, they do their own thing and this and that. I was about 22 and one of my drivers had this issue where he wasn't working, but he got called into a taxi committee. Taxi committee is like the court for taxi drivers basically. Oh, yeah. There's about 9 councillors or 9 or 10 councillors and the chair and so many councillors. They decide the fate of a driver really. Yeah. And in this case, one of my drivers from Beacon Taxis was called up and my dad said to me, well, I want you to go and represent the driver and help him out. So I was like, that's fine, no problem. So it was my first taxi committee ever. Now I think my belief is that the council made a mistake here. What they did was they called all 16 drivers, all offenders for not having the signboard on in one committee. Now in this committee, some of the actual drivers did not have the signboard on when it was working, and that was wrong. But majority, I think it was at least 13 or 14, the majority were actually off duty. You wouldn't expect a police officer who's off duty to be in his uniform patrolling the streets. It just wouldn't happen. The same way, although I do accept the council's argument that once a private hire vehicle is licensed, it should always remain a licensed vehicle. But you can't expect a driver, because some of these drivers can only afford one car. Yeah. You can't expect them to, you know, take their families with a signboard on that. It's just not right. It just wouldn't happen. So we're in this taxi committee now, and there was a gentleman called Mohammed Azam from Stourbridge, and he was representing 1 or 2 drivers. He had a bit of a stuttering problem, so he was stuttering as he was speaking. He was trying to give a background impression. The council's legal advisor kept pressuring him. Oh, what's your point? Get to your point. What are you trying to say? Get to your point. And I'm watching this, and all I can see is the representative, the guy Mohammed Azam, who's representing a few drivers, struggling to get his words out. And as the pressure was on him, he was really struggling to get his words out. And I'm there thinking, and all I could think at this time was what the drivers were saying to me over the years. They don't listen. They do what they want, how they want. So in anger more than anything, I just blurted out, have you got to go somewhere? Thought it kind of shocked them because they weren't expecting anyone to speak up. There were a few drivers there that just started laughing. The natural reaction was just to laugh. That gave me a bit more confidence. I was like, look, if you're going to go somewhere, you go. What is the point of you calling us here? If you're not going to listen to us, how is that right? And that just really shook them, you know, they just were not expecting it. The chairman said to me, the chair lady, she said, well, what is your argument? You know, why did you not have the signboard on? So I made a case for my driver who, you know, was just shopping with his family. One time he had his signboard on and his lady got knocked over because people wanted to get in a taxi. Yeah. You know, that's why he stopped putting his signboard on when he was not working. So because the council called all 16 members together, they had to give him the same punishment. So on this occasion they gave him all a warning, but the chair lady said, well, if we catch any driver from now on, we're going to make sure that they get a month's ban for no signboard and that. But when I came out the taxi committee, all 16 drivers started meeting me, started saying thank you to me. So I think that was really my first involvement, and I decided then on, I'm going to do my best to continue helping the drivers.
Yeah. How was the association formed?
I think in terms of the formation, the real person that should really get credit for this is Nassar Ahmed from Falcon Taxis. He's the owner for Falcon Taxis and A2B Taxis. Yeah. It was his initiative to get Councillor Pete Lowell involved. And what they did was they set up a joint meeting. Obviously the signboard issue was still going on at this time.
Yeah.
So this is, Nassar then got Peter involved, and we had a joint meeting with the council, and what they decided in that meeting was that a common sense approach would be taken, and the council would not enforce anyone to have the signboard on when they were not working. Obviously if they were working and they didn't have it on, then it was a straight month ban. Yeah. And I respect the council decision on that, because it's a uniform and they must oblige to it.
Yeah.
I think the other person that should really take some credit to the formation as well is Iwan Nash. She got the press together as well. That gave us a bit more limelight, it gave us a bit more unity. I think really the association really became strong in a sense was back in 2008. It was June 2008, I think it was. The council came up with this idea that they wanted all taxi bases, private hire bases, to have a manager in the office 24/7. You probably be aware of this. It's simply impossible to have a manager. It's not feasible really to have a manager in any sort of working environment of 24 hours. I accept the council's argument that yes, there's a controller there 24/7. You just cannot give a receptionist a job of a manager. It's simply not going to happen. We went to a taxi committee now, and we had, before we went, we had a meeting, and we decided there would be 3 key speakers. I was one of them, and there was 2 other personnel. And this is where the myth or the view of the trade is that the council like to divide and rule. And what happened was, one of our key speakers was taken away before the committee by Jenny Elliott. What was said, we don't know. Yeah. But when we went to the taxi committee, that key speaker walked out the committee. And I could not believe it for the life of me. It made us look so bad that the committee actually used that walking out stand from that one member to say, look, if not everyone's united, they don't care, so we're going to put this. So to them, they authorised that rule. Yeah. We were shocked. It was a lesson for me in a way, because I learned then that if I ever was going to be in a committee again, I had to make sure the key speaker was someone that I could actually trust. You could not just bring anyone there and they make you look so bad. It was unbelievable. So we had a meeting soon after that. An emergency meeting was held. The 12 members were there. We were called Dudley Private Hire Trade. It was like a union. I was elected as a chair back then in 2008. This is, and the members were discussing this, and they were saying, oh, we should do a strike and we should do this and that. I said, look, forget the strikes. Let's be sensible. Let's hire a solicitor. Let's take him to court. We've got 21 days to appeal. That's our right. Let's take it. And whatever happened will happen. Luckily for me, the whole members agreed. And as they agreed, we hired our solicitor, Anthony Sheila from Dennings, a cracking solicitor, probably one of the best in the business today. We went to court. Now, before we went to court, and I said to Mr. Sheila, I said, look, we really need to win this, because I knew for a fact that if we had lost that case, the association today would never have existed. Yeah. Luckily, we won the case. It was our first major win. Soon after, Dudley Private Hire Trade became Dudley Private Hire Taxi Association. We had a lot of Hackney drivers. I think majority of the Hackney trade, 80% at least, are associated with the taxi base, with a private hire base. So you know what, it was important that we accommodated that part of the license as well. Yeah. So we became Dudley Private Hire Taxi Association. But realistically, the formation was an important part, and we've been united ever since. Now we have 17 taxi bases united.
Really? You're the chairman of the Association of Taxi Watch. What is Taxi Watch now? Does it work?
Taxi Watch is a safety advisory group for taxi drivers, private hire drivers, and also the public. It's a way where we all come together, and if there's any concerns that the public may have or the drivers may have, that we work together and we try and protect our drivers. Taxi Watch came on the back of the death of Mohammed Arshad in Birmingham in 2009, I think it was, 2008 or 2009. It was a tragedy, and for years I was saying, look, we really need to set something up, a safety advisory group to protect our drivers and also our customers. Yeah. I think two people are very important to Taxi Watch. One is Inspector Steve Gordon, who was our police link to Taxi Watch, and the second is Dudley Council's enforcement officer, Trevor Parks. Both of these two gentlemen are very key to basically the founders of Taxi Watch. Without their support, it would never have happened. I'm glad that it has. There was always this little concern and little distance between the police and the taxi trade. I wanted to, build bridges, bring them both together, because at the end of the day, it's important that we work with the police, and because the police need us as well. We're the eyes and ears on the road. If there's any concerns, we can report to them. The same way, we need the police as well. If there's any concerns with taxi drivers, we need to be working together in order to help each other out. So I'm very grateful that we've got it set up, and as far as I'm concerned, and majority of the trade is a much better relationship with the police than it's ever been.
Yeah. Next part of the interview, Shaz, is about 2013. Now, it is without a doubt that 2013 has really been a year where the association has been highlighted. First of all, there was the Association Cup. That was the first ever Dudley Taxi Charity Group tournament. Talk us through it, Shaz.
Yeah, you're right. When I got re-elected as the chair in September 2013, because we have a 5-year term, that's how our association is set up, and my second 5-year term started last year, towards the end of last year. And one thing I've always believed in is that we really need to do a lot more to give back to the community. And one of the ways of doing that was the Association Cup.
Yeah.
Now, Birmingham Children's Hospital, one way or another, someone has always had, some sort of link with the hospital, whether it's your family, your friend, your colleague, or whoever.
Yeah.
You've always, there's been something that you've been linked to the hospital. Me personally, my child was treated there back in 2009-10, and they did a phenomenal job. They did a really cracking job, and I've always said, that I really want to do something back for them.
Yeah.
The Association Cup was that way. The Association Cup was basically a football tournament where we raise money for a charity, and in this occasion, it was the Birmingham Children's Hospital.
Yeah.
Our target originally was to get £500. So we had 6 taxi bases,
Yeah.
and I limited it to 6 taxi bases because I felt it was easier to organise more than anything. So I limited it to 6 bases. We had Fastline from Kings Winford, we had Elite from Lye, Falcon from Stourbridge, Beacon from Sedgley, Express from Hazoe, and a 5-star from Dudley.
Yeah.
So basically we had one from each area from our association in Dudley Borough. And there was 2 trophies. One was for the team that raised the highest amount, and the second was for the eventual winners. Fastline raised the highest of £347. Fair due to them and respect to them and their customers for raising that much in Kings Winford. Elite from Lye were the eventual winners, and I have to say, if I don't mention this, it'd be wrong on me. Elite, the team itself, were phenomenal throughout the tournament.
Yeah.
There was some cracking quality from all teams really, but Elite were the deserving winners at the end. The total amount we raised at the end was £1,130.
That's really good.
It was a well rewarding figure, to be honest with you. I was well chuffed about it. I never ever thought we'd raise that much. Keeping in mind our target was 500.
Yeah.
To double that was amazing, and we now decided that we would do an annual event, and next year we'll be doing it for a different charity.
Very good. Brilliant. So now we come on to the Any Colour victory. Your association has achieved success in other issues. Please explain.
Yeah, you're right. 2013 has really been the year of the association. There's other issues other than the Any Colour victory that have been very important. For one, the space saver issue. Basically, the space saver is, in the newer models of vehicles that we have now, the modern vehicles, they don't even have a spare tyre. They have what we call a space saver, or different types of space savers. Dudley Council were not allowing those vehicles to be licensed through the Lister Road as You know, you have to get a spare tyre in.
Yeah.
So if you got a small boot anyway, because that's how the space savers are designed, you have to have another spare tyre in there. So if you were doing shopping, you were limited.
Yeah.
You couldn't even do airport jobs. You know, you could probably take one customer, one passenger with one suitcase. That is simply not feasible. It's not affordable for a driver as well as trying to earn a living. It was really restricting them. So we took it to the council committee, and thankfully they agreed with us, and they now authorise place savers. The other big one was the entry-exit rules for minibuses.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know a driver, he brought a vehicle for X amount, and he had to spend another £8,000 or something on top to rearrange the seats for the council's liking. You know, and that was simply unfair. You know, you're spending already X amount of money, then to spend another £8,000 on top, it was just simply wrong. And luckily the council agreed with us on this occasion as well, and they said, look, they ended the entry exit rules, so now MPV vehicles as such can be licensed.
Yeah.
The admin rules, you know, paying £45 admin charge for just a 2-day difference for insurance cover or something. And luckily the council again agreed with us on that. They introduced a grace period. So basically, if your license lapsed for whatever reason, they would allow you another 14-day grace period as long as you had a very good valid reason, which was fair. So we were glad that they introduced that as well. So, you know, the year we've worked extremely hard, and we're quite relieved that some of our agreed with.
Yeah. Okay, now the main part of the interview, the 10-month battle. Take us back from the starting, from your loss on the 13th of March 2013. How did all that start?
Interestingly, when this all started, realistically all we wanted was an introduction to an additional colour. So we weren't saying give us any colour, we were just saying can we have another colour, because for years now, for many years now, especially in the recent last 2 or 3 years, there were concerns with the trade that the white cars, as they became in fashion, were becoming limited and also very expensive because they were in fashion. So what we wanted was an introduction of another colour, say silver or grey. We was going to let the committee decide on that. So when we went to this committee now, I mean, it's a historical committee, historical date 13/3/13, and historical committee because it was the first time ever that the committee were allowing an association to bring a proposal, and they were willing to listen. But what happened that day was simply wrong. I was absolutely gutted when we lost by 1 vote. It was a 5-4 decision. We lost by 1 vote. We just felt, the members just felt that we were robbed. You know, the wrong decision was made. They had no evidence to support that the single colour was any more safer than the multiple colour, or in that case, an additional colour. You know, we were gutted. The next day, interestingly, the 14th of March was actually my 27th birthday. I spent the whole day, you know, in meetings.
On your birthday?
With key council members, with key association members, with our solicitor to decide where to go next. Because if they had given us a strong reason to say why we could have the any other colour or another colour, we'd have said, thank you for your time, goodbye sir. We'd have walked away. But the fact that we felt that they just mocked us, we felt that they had not really listened to us, they had no genuine reasons, it really anchored the trade. And we had to make a stand. We had to do something to really get the attention.
That's right. Moving on to the 15th of the 4th, 2013, the infamous Go Slow protest that brought Dudley to a standstill, which caused a massive political bust-up.
Well, like I said, we needed to make a stand. We needed to let the council know that we were simply unhappy with the decision. We wanted one more chance. I mean, like I said before, I'm not a fan of protests or strikes, but on this occasion, we really needed to make a stand. We really need to do something to get their attention. Now, the original idea was to do a protest right after the next taxi committee, which was going to be on the 23rd or 24th of April. But then my members said, look, they're doing a massive full council meeting on the 15th. So why don't we do it then? You know, why don't, if we want to really get their attention, if we really want to make a mark, why don't we do the protest on a full council meeting and really basically let them know how we feel. The original plan was to do it for an hour, do a 2-lap around the council house, but within 20 minutes we literally had Dudley to a standstill. The traffic was unbelievable, you know, the scenes were chaos, and I thought to myself, I had two choices. I could have either let it carry on for an hour or call it off. And I thought we really had, in that 20 to 30 minutes, we really had made a statement. And I thought, you know what, let's not push it. Once again, I want to apologise to any person that was actually, you know, got stuck in that disruption. That was never our aim. Our aim was to send a message to the council that we were unhappy and we wanted one more chance.
Yeah. Now, your protest sparked a political debate. Councillor Harley, the opposition leader who you will be up against in the upcoming elections keen to win for 2014, branded your protest a disgrace.
In regards to Councillor Harley, I think he's a great person, but I still feel that he's been there for so long, it's time for a change. You know, Kingston for South, they need a fresh face, but that's a different story. In terms of the protest, we had to make a stand.
Yeah.
It's not a political issue, because keeping in mind I was going against my own Labour Party more than anything, because they're the ruling party.
Yeah.
I did it for my drivers because I was only one vote in a meeting that we had with our association. Majority voted for a protest, and I have to respect that decision.
September focus meeting, what happened?
Yeah, so basically soon after the protest and that, we had a meeting with key council, councillors, and it was agreed that if we brought in an amendment and we done a public consultation, they would be willing to listen.
Yeah.
So since from April to September, we went away and we did a survey with our public. We asked them, do they feel safe in a non-white vehicle? If we had 2 magnets on the side, basically magnets or stickers on the side of a vehicle to say, yeah, this is this company's vehicle and so on, would you feel safe when you get in that car if it wasn't white? 97 or 98% of our public said yes, they would feel safe. In the September focus group meeting, we presented our 3,000 survey names that we had, and the amendment was that they would allow any colour vehicle as long as they had the 2 either magnets or stickers on the side of the vehicle with the company name, company number, the council logo and the plate or badge number of the driver to say, yeah, they would allow it to be any colour. That was the amendment. Now what I found interesting in the September meeting was that the council's assistant director refused to take our survey, and I think the wording he said was, don't quote me on this, he said something along the lines, oh, it's not in our interest to take them. And I was like, well, why is it not your interest? Because at the end of the day, they're public, they're our work that we've done, that's the public view. Why would you not want to listen to the public? At that time I didn't think much of it, but I was just glad that they gave us a date for November 2013. So we had time now to start working towards the November committee.
Yeah. While you were preparing for the committee, Hell's Owen News broke an interesting story about Adrian Turner.
The Turners have been they're very interesting characters to be. Adrian Turner apparently was walking home. He lives in Shaz Saleem, by the way. So he was walking home from the establishment and he was stopped by 5 private hire drivers trying to apply for hire. Now, applying for hire is illegal. There is simply no excuses for it, and it's just simply wrong. It should not happen. We always condemn any drivers to do it. But in the last few years, especially with the introduction of Taxi Watch, we've been able to educate our drivers as well as our customers not to apply for hire, not to jump in any vehicle, make sure it's pre-booked. The only way you can apply a taxi is a Hackney licensed taxi. You can get in any licensed Hackney taxi as long as they have the meter on. So Adrian Turner was saying that he went to the news. I was a bit disappointed with Adrian because he went to the news instead of going through the right channels, which was approach the council or even talk to the association. My view was that he was just doing it in order to get back in the political world because he's been out for a while, and he was using the taxis, that little apply for hire element as an excuse to do that. And I simply was not going to allow anyone to use taxis in a negative way. I mean, look, you're going to get the good and bad, but that's just personalities. You can't blame the profession for the whole, you know, for one person's mistake.
Yeah.
An agent, for me, seemed to be doing it, trying to use taxes in a negative way.
Law Commission, explain that to me.
Now, the Law Commission, in terms of taxes, is where basically we have a new legislations come in which will affect taxi drivers in the future. The way it works is there's a draft report.
Yeah.
Once the draft report goes through, then the government will consider it. Then there'll be a first billing, second billing, then it goes to the House of Commons, and then there's another first and second billing. I mean, it could take up to 2 or 3 years before this legislation actually get passed. But saying that, as the time goes along, half of those legislations may get dropped out. Those new initiatives, new ideas may get dropped. So realistically, you might end up with the whole thing might get collapsed, because by that time the government changes well, and a new government may say, well, look, actually we don't need this. We're happy with the current format. We don't need this to happen.
Yeah.
So it's a long procedure which may or may not happen in the future.
Yeah. Your meeting's in September. It was agreed to be held in November. Why was the delay?
That's an interesting question, to be honest with you, and it's something that really shook the trade up. Basically, we went to September committee. You know, they wanted an amendment, they wanted evidence, and they wanted a public consultation. We complied with all 3 elements. We went to the September committee. We've got a date for November. We were preparing for November, and out of the blue, I think it was 3 weeks in October. I think it was basically 3 or 4 weeks before our November committee, and they said we're pulling the date because of the Law Commission. Now, what was interesting was the assistant director basically said to me in an email that there was a decision made that they felt that they should, if there was any changes, it should be held on until after the Law Commission draft report, which was supposed to come end of 2013.
Yeah.
But that date got changed to April 2014.
Really?
It was me that had to advise the assistant director, well, did you even know that the date's been changed? And they get no reply after that. So then we had I contacted the director of Law Filter, and I said, look, you know, I would like to have a meeting with you because I just feel you are making the wrong decision. We have a right to be heard. The fact that you are not hearing us is simply wrong and is unfair. So soon after we had this meeting, the chairman of taxi committee, Richard Body, was involved, Filter, as the assistant director, Mohammed Farouk, myself, the chair of the committee, taxi association, and the assistant chair, Imran, was also involved. It was a very interesting meeting. I mean, my personal reflection of the meeting was every point they had, we answered, and at the end we proposed that they would reconsider their decision to hold off our committee rights, you know, hold off our proposal until after the Law Commission, which now was April 2014, to let us be heard in December 2013.
Obviously they agreed the 11th of the 12th 2013 was the committee date. There was meant to be 3 options. Number 1, there's no change. 2, defer until after Law Commission, and 3, yes, any colour. However, what was option 4?
Well, option 4 was an interesting one because I think it was a week before the 11th, 12th, 13 that I got a phone call from my press team and said, have you seen the council's report that's now online? I was like, no, what is it? They go, there's a 4th option. A 4th option? What's the 4th option? The option was there was two points to this 4th option, but they highlighted point A, which was to make all hackneys black only. And I was like, whoa, that's just to me it felt like it was a design to divide and rule.
Yeah.
So what I did immediately, I contacted obviously my vice chair man. I got on the phone to him. I said, look, we need to meet there's a Dudley Taxi Alliance, which is a Hackney association. They represent 20 or 30% of the Hackney the trade. I said, look, we need to meet them and make them aware that there's, that we need to work together on this. It was a design to divide and rule. We needed to unite and we needed to conquer. We needed to work together on this. So I met the Hackney Association and I said, look, we need to work together on this. There is, we need any colour for private hire, and we want any colour for Hackneys. Because the second point for option 4 was that, and it was very small, one line basically, it was easily overlooked, was to make the members agree on any colour for Hackneys as well. So when we met, we sent an email, a united email from all our associations to the members to say, look, we think this is unfair. You can't move one problem to another, to the other part of the taxi trade just because you feel that is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
It's important. If you left Hackneys any colour from the start, there should remain any colour. Private hire needs to be any colour as well because we're pre-booked. We're pre-booking a taxi. And obviously, if you phone for a taxi today, you will know you'll be expecting a vehicle to be outside your house because you phoned for it.
Yeah.
We condemn any drivers that apply for hire, and we will be strictly against them. We wouldn't let that happen.
The 11th of the 12th, 2013, the 10-month debate concluded in victory. How did that feel?
It was more of relief than anything else. In a way, I was glad that it was all over.
Yeah.
Because towards the end of that year, I was well and truly exhausted. It was a very, very long battle, but I can't thank enough to each member that supported me throughout the whole campaign. A lot of people were involved in this. Every single base owner had a key role to play. Every single driver, private hire and taxi driver, had a key role to play, whether they were involved in the protest, whether they were involved in actually being at the meetings, or whether they're involved in helping us gather the survey reports. And again, those customers that were involved in the collection of the surveys, I have to thank them as well, because if it wasn't for their support, we wouldn't be here sitting today. But I want to thank each and every member of the association and all of our customers for their help.
Yeah, right. Over the past few weeks, I've received questions from the public, and I've selected a few which I'd like to ask you. First one is, what's your greatest inspiration?
Over the years, done a lot of studies on a lot of different, individuals who always believed in standing up for what they believe in. They stood up for their rights. People like Nelson Mandela, Muhammad Ali, Martin Luther King. These guys have been great inspiration. If you read their work, study their work, they're very powerful leaders, and they took a lot of slack for it, but yet they stood up for what they believed. Personally speaking, in the modern day, if there's one person that really has been massive inspiration for me, has been a great role model, will have to be my dad. I respect the guy so much. He has worked extremely hard to be where he is. He's a star lifting legend, Shaz Saleem. They call him the King Shazad. He's a phenomenal person, and if ever I'm unsure about anything, if ever I'm a little bit confused about anything, I'll always turn to him, and he'll always have some great advice to help me out. So for me personally, my dad is the best person.
Yeah. Second one is, what's your view on Janet Elliott?
Look, a lot of people have their own beliefs, whether you like her, you dislike her, everyone respected her. For me personally, I liked her a lot. I think she was a great person, great personality.
The next person will have a lot to look up to.
Definitely.
What are your views on the chairpersons you work with?
In my time, in the 5 years that I've been there now, I've worked with 3 different chairs.
First, Doreen Amerson. I think she's a great person. She really knows her taxi stuff. She knows everything that they need to know. I think she's very fair and very firm, but firm. To be honest, I really enjoyed working with her. Next was Bob James. I didn't work much with him because when he came, I think it was only a year or so before the council changed, and then there was a Labour chairman after that. He was the last Tory chair that I worked with. I don't have many positive views about him. I don't think he knew much about the taxi world. But like I said, I only worked with him a limited time anyway. The third is the current chair, Richard Boddy. Again, I think like Doreen, he knows his stuff. He's very firm. I think he's more. He listens to the you know, other people's view more than the other chairs have ever done. You know, he really goes out his way, and does his own research, which I think is admirable, and I would encourage more chairs to do that, because realistically, if you're going to make a decision on someone's that will impact an individual's life, you should really know what you're doing before you do so. And I think he's someone that again I have a lot of respect for as well.
Did you ever doubt the outcome of the Any Colour campaign?
I would say yes. There were times where I would, you know, especially when they pulled the date from us, and I thought, you know what's going to happen now? But every time where, you know, I would have a little bit of doubt that's going to happen, someone will come to me and say, what do you think, is it going to happen? Is it going to happen? And there's no way in my heart I could say no to that individual. I could not say no to him. And just for them to come to me, it was like a little bit of hope for them, you know, that this change meant a lot for them. So I thought, you know what, it made me more determined, it motivated me more.
Finally, I, as well as the members, would like to know, what are the plans for 2014?
Interesting question. I think one of the big ones that has been around is just as important as the colour one, is the formant plate issue that we have. I think it's unfair to make someone pay 3 times in 1 year for a vehicle fee. It's too expensive. But the other one, I've been really working on last year as well. I've touched on last year, and I'll really push it for this year. I believe we need an additional testing station in Dudley. I mean, Wolverhampton has about 14, Birmingham has 5, and Sandwell have more than 1. Why does Dudley have only 1 testing station? I mean, it's with anything. If you want to get a second opinion in other sort of elements, you can do so. Like, for example, a medical, there's 2 medicals. You can have your own doctor or have with a council doctor for a second opinion purpose. But for Lister Road testing stations, you can't. If the Lister Road say this is it, you're stuck with it. You have to do what they say, basically. Realistically, Lister Road has a monopoly over a market because there's no other competition around it, so they can charge what they like. On top of that, it would benefit the drivers, because obviously if Lister Road is filled up earlier last year, there was cases where Lister Road were blocked up and drivers waited for nearly 2 weeks before they got their vehicles tested. Some drivers were off the road until they got their vehicle tested. So it's important we get another testing station to benefit the drivers. And I think the only person that could really support us on this would be the Cabinet Member for Transport, Councillor Khurshid Ahmed.
Right, that's brought us to the end of the interview. So thank you so much for taking time out your busy schedule for joining us. Thank you once again. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.